Welcome to Raise It Up with me, Dani Kagan, entrepreneur, mom of two, and your host. This is a place for real, unfiltered conversations about growth with ambitious women, mothers, and entrepreneurs who are building businesses while raising families. Together, we're redefining what peak performance looks like and reshaping modern motherhood. From parenting and personal growth to business and beyond, let's dive in with practical insights, empowering takeaways, and inspiring conversations. I'm excited that you're here. Let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. Today, I have an incredible guest. Today's guest is Dr. Robyne. Honestly, think of her as your friendly neighborhood scientist who somehow makes life make sense. She is brilliant at taking all the heavy, brainy research about stress and resilience and performance and turning it into real life tools that actually work. And we are diving into the good stuff today: how to handle stress, find balance, just do a little bit of life better in a way that's totally fun, not super preachy, which is why I loved having Dr. Robyne here, because I've heard her so many times. I feel like it's so kismet that we're here today. And her work covers everything from high performance, which is one of my favorite topics, to motherhood and everything in between as it relates to well-being. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for the invitation. I'm excited to connect today with you.
I am so excited to get into this. I love going in deep really fast.
Yes.
Okay. I want to know how and why you have made an entire career out of studying resilience.
Oh, what a cool question. So the intention was never set out to build an entire career about human resiliency and performance. And like really great experiences, sometimes they actually unfold in ways we never saw happening, yet also see that this is exactly what I'm meant to be doing, which I feel very fortunate to do. So personally, I'm someone who I shared before in different places and spaces. I had a pretty tumultuous adolescence. I was considered an at-risk youth, dropped out of high school. I was kind of all of those boxes you would tick for a teenager who was really lost and also really needed a lot of help. And one of the things that I often share is that the folks who need the most help, we often ask for it in the wrong ways. And so I picked up a whole bunch of behaviors that really didn't serve me and ended up hurting a lot of folks. And I had another experience, Dani, where at 16 in this like dark season, experienced a pretty catastrophic car accident. And it was just this opportunity for a fresh start, a new beginning. And after that accident, and again, recoveries are never linear. It was pretty bumpy, but it really set me on this course about using education as a tool, figuring things out, learning. And then I got to a point where I just wanted to share and give back however and whoever I could support and help.
Wow. I want to ask you if you're comfortable sharing like how you came out of that, because I used to work with a lot of at-risk youth as well, and it's so hard to actually like climb out of that. And like you're so well put together, you're a doctor, you like, how did you come out of that time?
Yeah, I love that you're asking this question because so often people ask, oh, like, tell us all the nitty gritty about the car accident, which I understand there's a sensational component to a pretty horrific car accident. But I love the question that you're asking about, how do you get from here to there? And one of the practices and something that I learned about myself again, through reflection and having really great support with my family is essentially it was one decision at a time. So it wasn't trying to build this massive comeback. It was this idea about what's my next right choice and figuring out a few really stable, solid pieces of behavior that tied into our values, my values, and just really started to build some momentum, very steady, very slow. As I said, recoveries are never linear. So of course there were setbacks. There were days where it was heavy and harder, but just the opportunity to look at it as one kind of next choice, one good decision after the other, and having just a wee bit of structure allowed me to start to build that comeback. But it was slow and it was steady, but it also felt very, very solid.
Yeah, it's like a good reminder about the slow and steady. I think people like see these like magical turnarounds and these success stories like in business too, and
Yes.
you miss out on like the slow and the steady and the consistency.
Mhm.
And I'm just so impressed. Like I truly like, like I feel for you, and I feel like you are the success story. Like that is what happens when you continue to do the thing to get you to that from point A to point B. Wow,
Thank you.
it's just amazing.
Thank
Um,
you.
okay, so what is resilience? Because I feel like we throw the word around a lot. And I also really want to talk about stress today, too.
Yeah.
I know that's something that our listeners struggle with a lot. Moms,
Yeah.
working moms, ambition.
Yeah.
We're in a different time of motherhood now where we're doing all the things. But let's take a step back. What is resilience?
Well, for me, and how I define resilience is that it's this idea more than just bouncing back. It's this idea of a set of skill sets. It's this ability of practices that we do that allow us to essentially be extraordinary when we're called upon. So again, what I mean by that, it's not something you're born with or something you have or you don't have. It's essentially what people do each and every day, their habits, their routines, the relationships that they foster and they look after that allows people to weather the hard parts, which inevitably everyone will face in one way or another. None of us are going to get out of this without experience even difficult days, difficult hours, difficult experiences. And it's how we show up in the face of that difficulty or that hard thing that really allows us to kind of know who we are, what we are about, and what it takes to be okay on the other side of it.
Okay, so let's talk about the toolbox. So if we're talking about things that we can do to actually help us become more resilient, because it sounds like it's something we can continue working on and
Yes.
it's not something that we're born with. What are those things that you can take out of your toolbox on a daily basis to actually help you become more resilient?
Yeah, I love this question. I think one of the areas that are so often overlooked is really being mindful of our narratives, those inner voices, how we talk to ourselves, how we refer to ourselves, being able to use language as in, I'm somebody who can figure things out. I'm somebody who can navigate hard things. I'm somebody who is adaptive, right? I'm nimble in my thinking. Like even just how we talk about ourselves, because so often, especially, when I'm working with women, I'll hear them say these really horrible, really negative pictures of themselves, right? Where they're like, oh, I have no follow through, or, right, I can't handle stress, or, I'm not very good at emotion. I'm not very good at conflict. Like they're just really like kind of speaking all this negative over their capacity. And it just, again, I think it makes it harder than it needs to be. So I think a place to start with our resiliency is how we see ourselves and that self identity piece. And the other part is to take stock of all of the hard things that we have been able to figure out. So often we look back on our past and maybe we feel some shame or maybe we feel some guilt or embarrassment or, like, oh, I didn't do that good enough or I didn't figure that out. But our past, I think our success leaves clues. So we've been able to figure things out before and being able to remind ourselves like, hey, you know what? I felt super scared before in a situation and I was able to still show up. I was able to feel afraid and do it anyway, right? Again, that inner dialogue, but also using artifacts from our past, not as things that are holding us back, but really giving us leverage that we can do hard things, we can figure things out, and today's going to be okay.
The inner dialogue. It is, I think, one of the hardest things to change about ourselves.
Yeah.
And even as you're talking, I'm thinking, I actually did this exercise this morning where I did an inventory of all of the success that has gotten me to today. Because I'm
Yep.
like in the shit right now and in the mud with
Yeah.
like my business and my kids and all this stuff. And I was like, wait, I need to take a step back
Yep.
and think about the amazing 6 million lives I've had to get
Yes.
me to this point.
Yeah.
And so even though I'm here right now, I've had so many little successes to get me to this point. So I feel like this is very timely because I've never done that before. And
Yeah.
it just so happened that I did that this morning. Maybe you were like in my ear at some point, but
I
I
love
was
it.
like, I need to do an inventory of all the success I've had until this point because it really helps to fuel that inner voice, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and what happens is our brains and our bodies, the way our psychology works, it's always looking for evidence. So if we're feeling a lot of worry, what it's going to do is it's going to kind of review, all of our inner systems and being like, when are other times I felt worried? And again, it starts to compound. So it's always looking for evidence. So if we are able to take kind of more of that driver's seat to say, hey, the evidence that I want to be focusing on are these wins, these successes, maybe small successes or hard earned wisdom, right? Because a lot of the wisdom that we know to be true, we learned it the hard way. And I even remember years ago being interviewed on a podcast and we were talking about learning styles. And they were like, Robyne, what's your learning style? And again, I'm sure the interviewer meant like, kinesthetic, auditory, visual. And I'm like, oh no, the hard way. Like I literally, all the lessons that I have learned them painstakingly, and
Yep.
some of them I've had to repeat a lot until I was able to figure out what I needed to repair, because we do repeat what we haven't repaired. And again, it's this idea of pulling those evidence, using that as those building blocks for that foundation to know that we are okay. And I think so often there's this propensity that, especially as working mamas, that we want to try to be perfect. We need everybody to be okay. We need everything to be okay so we can be okay. But really that's inside work, right? We have to make sure we're solid, we're steady, we feel well resourced. Calling to mind some of those good tips that you did like this morning, where you're like, hey, I've navigated this. I've impacted people in a big positive way. Again, that inner coach starts to take over versus the critic.
It's such a great reminder. And I do tell my 4-year-old, at least, like I do say things to her now more than ever, like, oh, we can do hard things.
That's
Like
right.
like that. I say that to her a lot, and then I need to say it to myself more. Like we're so good at sometimes like giving these like points of wisdom to our children and then like not doing it ourselves.
Oh, for
So I
sure.
feel like this
Yeah.
is a really good reminder that like I
Yeah.
need to say to myself, like I can do hard things, like the things I say to my kids, right?
Absolutely. And one of my gentle invitations, again, I've built an entire career around the belief that we can do hard things, and it's so important. And what I also think it's really helpful, especially for moms, to be able to remind ourselves that we are very well resourced. Because right now I see such a scarcity mindset that there's not enough time, there's not enough energy, we don't get enough help. We are trying to do this by ourselves. We're getting more support from strangers on the internet than we are from our own family sometimes, right? Like it's this odd kind
Yeah.
of era that we are in, but reminding ourselves that we actually are very well resourced. But when we focus on that scarcity, which again is a stress response, so I understand why we're pulled to this place of scarcity. But when we actually kind of pause, slow down, even again, just taking a couple deep breaths and reminding ourselves, yeah, I do hard things, I figure it out, I'm well resourced, and I want to show up boldly in the next right choice.
I mean, I'm gonna have to re-listen to this whole episode later, just like purely for myself.
Perfect.
Okay, so we're now doing some better inner
Yeah.
self-talk. We're talking to ourselves better. What's another thing that will help us build the resiliency?
Yeah, so I'm a really big advocate on figuring out what are the parameters that set you up for feeling okay. So what I talk often about is this idea about what does it take for me to stay above the line as a parent, as an entrepreneur, as somebody who's doing this work, and what does it look like when I go below the line? So when I'm below the line, I'm under resourced. So I'm not sleeping very well, I'm not getting a lot of good movement, I'm definitely not connecting with loved ones. I tend to do a lot of self-sabotaging behavior, a little bit of protest behavior, maybe staying up a little bit too late some nights. And again, I understand that those behaviors are putting me under the line. And I know exactly what it feels like when I'm doing the things that keep me on top of that line. So again, I think everyone's line looks different. And depending on the season you're in, the line's going to be different. But again, having a few guardrails and parameters about what it feels like for you and what is that recipe for you, because there isn't one size fits all where it's like, oh, if you just take this supplement, you do a cold plunge and you do this, you're going to be good, because you can
Right.
do all of the things and still not be okay. Because again, it's a very personal relationship with our self stewardship. So knowing when you're showing up above the line. And the other gentle invitation for especially women on this is to exercise so much compassion for ourselves when we go below the line. We can't hate ourselves healthy. We can't punish ourselves for coming up short. We want to meet that version of us who's below the line with just radical care, right? Just kindness, radical care will get so much better recovery if we show up in a really gentle way, as we would for our children, as we would for our loved ones, as we would, or how we would hope leaders would show up for their teams, right? Show up with lots of compassion, general, really, we talk about this idea about like gentle assumptions, like give yourself the benefit of the doubt. Just being very kind to ourselves will bounce back way faster.
I'm nodding a lot because I feel like I am so mean to myself when I don't exercise. And I know
Yeah,
that for me, exercise is one of the things that like makes me feel like a high performer. It
of
allows me to
course.
be a better mom, like everything. And I'm so mean to myself
Yeah.
when I don't put it in my calendar, and I have to put it in my calendar.
Mhm.
Otherwise it doesn't like get done,
Yeah.
and or sign up for a class and like prepay for it so that I actually show up.
Yeah.
And I really struggle with like being nice to myself when I'm in a season where I can't exercise as much. And I actually don't know how to be more compassionate to myself in those
Oh,
moments.
I got you on this. I so got you on this. So
Help.
my invitation for you is I want you to think about your movement practice, whatever that looks like, and essentially have 3 iterations. Okay, so you're going to have the one iteration. Well, you can call it your boot camp where you're like locked in, dialed in, you are sweating, you are just in it. You know what that looks like, whatever that kind of hard, intense workout would look like for you. Okay, that's going to be one version of your workout. The other one, I want it to be some sweet spot in the middle where it has moderate intensity. Maybe you go for like a pretty good hike or like something where you're moving. It's hard, but it's not max effort. And then I want you to have a third iteration of your workout that's like gentle. That could be like maybe it's going for a really soft walk or walking tenderly, or maybe it's some stretching. And what I encourage you to do is just make sure that, like, when you're looking at your schedule, to think about, okay, here I am having a really busy week. You're recording all these podcasts, you're moving mountains. Okay, trying to throw a really heavy tier 1 workout is probably not going to feel likely, right? It's not probable, and then we'll feel guilt and shame and all the things. But if you schedule like maybe that hot yoga class, right? That a class where it's a wee bit gentler, but you're still getting a workout, and give yourself permission to oscillate between the 3 different versions. And what happens is when you match your energy with the workout, you're going to recover faster, and you're going to look forward to the days where you're well energized so you can do those harder workouts. You're going to look forward to the days where you can be tender and you can have a more gentle workout, and you're still getting your movement practice in. You just have 3 versions. And I can share, in full disclosure, for me, I don't really have a middle one anymore. Either I'm like all in or it's like very gentle. I just oscillate between the two, but that works for me. And again, I just find simplifying it makes a big difference.
I love that. It's super helpful. So, what are the other things that we can pull out of a toolbox that will help us become more resilient? And then I want to switch over to stress, but I want to help everyone, become and leave this episode today feeling like, oh, like I understand how to become more resilient, and these are like the daily practices that will help me get there. And um, so yeah, let me start with that, and then we'll move on to stress, which is also a really big topic that I want to cover.
Absolutely. So, in my research, what we were able to see is that resiliency essentially is built up by 5 pillars. And the way we think about this is the 5 pillars, and I'll tell you each of them just briefly. It's a sense of belonging, right? Having a home team, having your people in your corner that are going to hold you up, that you're going to work hard for. Like, having our home teams are absolutely critical. And it's a chosen team. Whoever you put in that tight, tight inner circle, we want to make sure that we're looking after those relationships. Because at the absolute end of the day, when all is said and done, it's our relationships that make the biggest impact on our capacity to be resilient. Our relationships matter.
And does that mean removing people from that circle that don't serve us? Like what's the other
Absolutely.
side of
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And there's that kind of old adage where people come in kind of for a reason or a season or for the long haul. And
Yes.
again, it's recognizing when do we have to let go of certain relationships. I think often where I see people struggle the most is when it comes to family dynamics. And they would say, like, oh, well, I have to be a good daughter, or a good sister, a good whatever. The reality is sometimes we need to relegate people from family to a relative, which means that we're still connected, but I actually have to put up a few guardrails and some boundaries, because me being in constant contact, or me letting you have such access to me, because that's what boundaries are all about. It's just access to our time, to our
Mm.
energy, to our thoughts. So again, once we put somebody kind of in that place of relative, we're still respectful, but like we're probably not going to them when we need some help, right? If you go to someone that it's a trusted source and they can show up for you and offer good counsel and they support you and see you, like, yes, keep going to that person. But if they're going to throw I told you so, or you are somebody who always gets yourself into these situations, it's like, no, thank you. And that's, we're going to put a wee bit of distance.
Yeah, it's such a good reminder. And it's also a nice way to another way to like talk about boundaries and the word access that really just like flipped a switch in my head about like who you're giving access to yourself. Like that's
Yes.
such a great new way to think about a boundary. Okay, so that's number 1.
Yeah.
Let's keep going
Yes.
down the
Yeah.
line.
So the other ones we talk about are perspective, like our ability to be able to kind of see the big picture and again, organize our thoughts and our feelings in a way that are constructive. And we know our perspective grows in relation to our lived experience. So again, making sure we don't kind of waste a mistake, right? Mistakes are going to happen. Setbacks are part of any story. It's how do we use it strategically to be able to fuel our futures and set us up in the right direction. The third variable we talk about is acceptance. And this is the one where I think especially women can get a lot of really good traction with. And this is the idea, Dani, of working within your controllables, being able to figure out what's within your control, what is outside of your control, or even identifying what's somewhat within your control and putting your action where you have the most agency. The fourth variable we talk about in my research is hope. And I think that's what the world needs such a big dose of right now. I actually just finished writing a book on hope. It's the through line that makes the biggest difference in resiliency and stress navigating is being able to cultivate hope practices, trusting that we are going to be okay, that this is going to work out. And the last one, it's a wee bit of a wild card. The last variable we saw for building resiliency was actually humor, that people who are able to like hold on to the things that matter most, but not too tightly to some of the things that don't matter most, are the ones that are able to navigate pretty much whatever comes their way. Now, again, this isn't a recipe to be bulletproof. It is a recipe, though, for creating a foundation of your lifestyle that when you are under pressure, when you are under stress, that you actually have this really solid bedrock underneath you that makes it so you don't sink. It makes it so you might have to pause, but it doesn't crush you.
I love the bit about humor. I feel like we're so serious in everything we
Oh,
do, and we're having so
yeah.
many serious conversations constantly. Like I'm having serious conversations with my husband about like how we're gonna like deal with this issue with our toddler and
Yep.
bedtime and everything's so serious. And I've actually like recently been playing with her so much more because and last night we had such a fun night with her. Like she built this whole like pretend rocket ship and we just like put our phones away and I was cackling like she
Yeah.
was this was like the first time I felt like we were interacting in like such a
Yeah.
like the funniest way where she was because she's a bit older now, like
Yeah.
she's 4, and I just feel like how do I bring that hilariousness and that humor with like the playtime with her into like my everyday
Yeah.
and not make everything so serious and doomsday.
Yeah.
And I just feel like I've been doing a better job of it, but it's definitely hard because we take our things so seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are important, serious things that are happening. So it doesn't mean we're not aware of, geopolitical issues and all these horrible things that are happening all around the world. And so often people say, like, how can you be having fun or this lightheartedness or this merriment when this horrible thing is happening all around us? Well, the idea is that the first and foremost, we were not designed to take in all of this negative information, right? Information is, we're being bombarded by all of this negativity, which is putting our nervous systems in overdrive. And we weren't designed to be that way. We weren't designed to be in a state of crisis all the time. We're meant to visit stressful moments. We're not meant to marinate in the misery of the world. And so again, if we want people to be active global citizens, we want them to care deeply, but we want to make sure they're not carrying it into recovery time, family time, joy, play time. And one of the really cool things, again, with our evolution is that we see in the research that for someone to learn a new activity, to create what we call in that myelin sheathing, or that, that idea lots of folks are talking about, our little neurotransmitters to create new knowledge, to create new meaning and lessons. What we knew around neuroplasticity, for us to learn something, to activate that system, Dani, we know if you do it in play, it's usually about 20 to 40 repetitions. If you do it without play, it's usually 400 repetitions until the brain will actually absorb it, which is why children are designed with curiosity and play, because it actually fuses learning explosions, which means they're covering more ground when they do it through play. So even what you described,
Whoa.
oh, I know. And what you just described with your daughter last night, right? So building her rocket ship, doing her thing, she is engaging in this rapid learning and discovery that's making it so her neuroplasticity is just expanding at an exponential rate, compared to if we sat her down and showed her a book about a rocket ship, or tried to explain something around, creative play or critical thinking. We don't learn that way. We're not designed to. We're meant to learn in motion.
Okay, I have to go on a tangent now. This is
Please
brilliant.
do. Yeah, please.
This is so cool. So, like, should we be doing more like team building, even if your team is like 2 or 3 people? Like, should we be doing more team building around play to like help motivate our teams?
Absolutely. Anytime that you can bring in gamification in ways that you could bring lightheartedness, some joy, some silliness, just giving our nervous system a chance to say that we are safe and we are okay. And what that does is it actually kind of repositions our energy when we're not in this mode of just trying to survive and just try to get through everything and kind of ignore and override and just overperform, deliver to keep ourselves safe. What we can actually experience is that sense of exhalation. And we're not able to experience laughter, merriment, and joy if we're in a threatened state. So it's recovery behavior in its finest.
I have so many things going on in my brain right now. Can we go back to neuroplasticity for 1 second?
Yes.
Like, I thought that was really only available when you were little. And I know that you can change some of the ways that you think by doing things consistently, but what does that really look like for us as adults and
Yeah, I feel
changing
like
the
that.
way we
Yeah.
think?
I feel like that's such a big misconception that we know, this idea that like kind of, what the network of brain that you're given by, 7, it's like all downhill from here. You can't get any more. Now, yes, we can't get any more, but we can work with what we have. So if you think of anything, like any belief that you hold, it's just a practice thought. Any belief that you hold is just a practiced idea. And so if we want to create deeper beliefs about something different, what we want to do is just, again, revisit that idea over and over, why that consistency piece is so important. Because essentially what we're doing is we're making that pathway smoother. And our brain will always retrieve the smoothest, most accessible type of idea or belief. So again, we just want to get those trenches nice and smooth. We do that by revisiting it often. And that's one of the reasons why, for example, like trauma is so challenging, although it's something that we can work with. People can live big, bold, beautiful lives and also coexist with things like PTSD. Is that they've created other en routes and trailheads into information that they're able to access. And again, repeating it in such a way that allows some of that positive to take traction.
Okay, so can we do an example of like a belief system and how and like go through that motion? I just like I
Totally.
need like an example so that people can like
Okay.
really understand. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll give you one of my, this is the one that we talk about often when I'm doing workshops and coaching. So I want you to think at this kind of idea about like you have this kind of setting. Okay, so let's say you're level of organization, right? Let's say your level of organization, you have a baseline setting based on all of your lived experiences and your beliefs and your ideas and your upbringing that you're like a 75, right? On a scale of 1 to 100, you're like 75 when it comes to organizing. And then all of a sudden, you're going to notice one day, like, wow, the house is really messy. It's really cluttered. It's like really like overwhelming. So then you're going to notice, wow, my 75, it like dropped to like 60, right? Like I took my eye off it. It kind of went to hell in a handbasket. And then all of a sudden we start to feel this restlessness, right? We got to change it up. So we buy all of the bins. We watch all of the YouTube videos. We buy all of the links on people, we buy steamers, we buy organizers, we do all the things, and we get our house to like a 90, right? Our house all of a sudden is pristine. It's 90. We're feeling super good. And then you're going to notice after a wee while, we will naturally regress back to that 75 because that is our baseline. That is where we feel comfortable. So anytime we are out of alignment, we're going to feel a sense of urgency that we have to fix it. So let's say we want to dial in our nutrition, right? All of a sudden we'll feel this urgency that we have to fix it. We are going to go past the baseline. We'll dial in our nutrition, we'll experience the outcomes that we're hoping for, and then all of a sudden we get a little bit comfortable and we start to kind of move backwards. We regress back to our baseline of 75. So when we want to change and have lasting, sustainable change, we actually have to change the baseline. And the baseline are the core beliefs. The baseline is the idea that I deserve more than this, or I don't have to be content with this. And it's not that every area of our life needs to be 100. It's we have to figure out what's our blueprint of optimal. And again, it changes per season. It changes, my kiddos are like, 21, 19, and 17. So it's changed radically from when they were toddlers. But again, what we have is that nimbleness, that flexibility that we can reset, we recalibrate, and we build steady patterns, lifestyles, livelihoods that allow us to create new baselines.
This is a very good segue actually to stress because I feel a little stressed thinking about all of this stuff that we have to do, right? We have to I want to get my baseline of organization, for an example, to, an 85, and I want to get my baseline of this to another level. And it's this constant need as I think ambitious. It's like a blessing and a curse to be an ambitious working mom. It's that constant, oh my gosh, I'm not enough. And there's so much going on and I have so many buckets and I'm spread so thin. So let's talk about stress because I feel like this is very common with a lot of people who are like us, who are listening. How do we manage all of that? There's so much to manage. Yeah. How do we feel like we're actually doing it all?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, the reality is we can't do it all, right? Like that. And it's not to say that I'm in any way trying to disempower anyone, but the reality is we are putting importance in areas that actually don't make a big difference. We want to make sure we're making what matters most matter most. Because when you have that in alignment, all of the other stuff just becomes noise, right? So yeah, we could be, chasing, we have that sense of scarcity, we're trying to do all of the things. But the question I would ask you, it's to what end? To what end? How far are you trying to take this? So whether it be a tidy house, whether it be your child being involved in every single extracurricular, your child being exposed to language, music, the arts, all of the things, it's to what end? What is the goal that you want to have? If your goal is to raise a compassionate, thoughtful, critical little thinker, okay, well, you don't have to do all of those things, right? So again, kind of asking, who are we using as this comparator of what we're trying to achieve? And is this actually in alignment with the goals? And I can give you an example. Just recently, I had a great conversation about this idea about trying to pack it all in the summer, right? I want to try and pack all this in. I have two that are in university. So when everybody's home, I just try to pack it all in. But the question my friend asked me is are you showing up for whatever that is? Are you showing up how you want to be showing up for them? And I'm like, no, I feel frazzled. I feel frantic. I'm rushing. And they're like, okay, so if the goal is to have these memorable experiences with your older teenagers, is this the best way to get it? By trying to pack it all in? Or is there a different way that you might want to imagine that? What's a different way you can think about it? So again, making sure that we're really focused on what the goal is, because there are so many distractions and there is so much noise. And half of the things that we're doing probably aren't actually in alignment with our goals that matter most.
Yeah, it's like going back to like prioritizing. Like even in my business, I'm like I could just like open up my inbox and just like start doing all of the things at once, but not everything is actually a priority. And it's like that mode of thinking for like the rest of your life too, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, I think it's really important to take note of what are the things that kind of pull you off focus? What are the, so for example, if, you notice that if you're on social media, and again, I have no issue with social media. Like, I feel like everybody thinks it's, it's going to take us to hell in a handbasket. There's a lot of other things that are going to be our downfall before social media. But one of the things that's interesting is just to pause and notice it. It's like, how do I feel afterwards? Like, am I looking at this for inspiration, ideas, connection, or am I using this as a measure of social comparison to actually just make myself feel bad about myself, to make myself feel like I'm coming up short as a parent, to make myself feel like I'm not doing enough? So again, just being mindful of some of the behaviors that we do. Like, again, some of them might be procrastinating behaviors, some of them might be protest behaviors, but just kind of taking note of where we're getting our time taken away from us. And when we put ourselves back in that place of being present, resourced, we know what matters most, we realize that, like, wow, this is a rat race and I would prefer not to be a rat in it.
Totally. But is all stress bad? Like, isn't some stress good for us? Like you said earlier on something about, I have to go back and now listen, something about stress, and I forget exactly what you said, but there was something alluding to the fact that not all stress is bad.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest misconceptions right now is that stress is a moral issue. And the reality, stress isn't ever good or bad. It's the doses of cortisol that we get on a daily
Ah,
basis. And it's the volume of cortisol that we're having on a daily basis, Dani, that's actually making us really unwell. So again, stress, our little stress molecule, like if you look from a chemistry perspective at, like, if you literally look at the molecule of adrenaline and cortisol, it can't tell the difference if you are being chased by a bear or if you have a really full inbox, right? Like it can't tell the difference, right? It's not like, oh, this is a good stress. Or when people say, like, oh, she's getting married, this is good stress. It's like our body doesn't metabolize cortisol in a moral way. It's the doses of that on a daily basis that puts us to a place that it's harder for our bodies to recover, to heal, to grow, and to learn. And when we're in distress, we're not learning, we're not growing, we're not kind of advancing. We're literally just trying to survive. And when you're in a survival state for too long, eventually the body's going to start to shut down, or our relationships are going to start to take the brunt of it.
well, my body tells me immediately when I am about to like hit the burnout or
Yes.
hit like rock bottom. Like
Yeah.
it is like it usually screams at me, and I
Yeah.
know that like this happens for a lot of other people, and um, to take that sign, like to take the sign before it gets to that
Yeah.
point is so hard because you feel like you're just on the hamster wheel sometimes, and it's like it's actually that you're reminding me full circle moment to that the exercise actually in fact is not just like something to help me build my resilience, but even to take it a step further, it actually will help me get into a much more peaceful neutral state
Yes. Yeah.
mentally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's two kind of gentle thoughts I'd love to pull on that you just described. Number one, often what we call a cognitive distortion or a mental trap when we are in distress, which means we have more cortisol than our body can process, is what we call the when then trap. When I get through this one thing, then I'm going to be okay. When I just get this stuff over, if I get this amount of followers, if I get this amount in my bank account, if I just get this opportunity, then I'm going to be okay. And the reality is that the when then trap will keep us on that hamster wheel. That's that idea of what that cyclical pattern is. And the other gentle theme that I would encourage us to think about is when you notice you're in that place of burning out, when you notice you're depleted and you're under resourced, my invitation for people is just get to the shore. Literally, you're drowning, just get to the shore. Don't question, why am I in the water again? Or why am I drowning again? Or how does this always happen to me? It doesn't matter what got you into the situation. in an acute moment when you're feeling that big overwhelm, just ask yourself, what do I need to get to the shore? Maybe that's something as simple as like, if you are in a place of privilege and you have reprieve, to be able to have somebody come over and navigate a meal with your child, because you literally need to just go for a walk, or you need to just go for a drive, right? And again, I appreciate some folks are navigating this all by themselves and they don't have that. So if you don't have that reprieve, the question would be like, what can you simplify as fast as possible? Like, no kid is going to not make it into university because they had craft dinner for dinner, right? Like, no kid is not going to have a big, bright future because they had cereal for dinner, right? So whatever it is, just to simplify that moment so you are okay, because then you're going to be able to show up and get yourself back to good.
Such good reminders. It's like as soon as the body tells you, and for this is, I'm speaking from my experience, when my body tells me you're gonna hit burnout really soon, it's like I need to just listen immediately and
Yes.
get to shore. Like, do the
Yeah.
thing, stop what I'm doing. But I
Yeah.
love I love self-sabotaging. I love being
Mhm.
like, I'm fine. And I
Yeah.
tell myself I'm fine.
Mhm.
And the when then trap is so, I'm going to think about this, I think, for the rest of my life. The when them
Yeah.
trap. The
Yeah.
when them trap. Like,
Yeah.
it's so true. When I
Yeah.
do this, then I'll be able to relax. And that's just not how our lives work at all. Like, you have teenagers, right? Like, what
Yeah.
am I looking forward to? I don't have, do I get this when they're older, I'll have time? Probably not, right? You're going to tell me probably not.
Not at all. Yeah, it's different, right? It's absolutely different. But that's the thing. And I think it is fuel for high performers to be able to use the when then trap. Okay, it's fuel. So it's not that it's all innately bad. We've used it, right? Where
Yes.
it's like, I just got to get this paper, when you're going through school, I just got to get this paper knocked off and then I'll be able to, like, then I can be, then I can go to sleep, right? I just have to finish the semester and then I'm going to be okay. Like, there is a place for it. But what happens, I think, for high performers is that we basically overuse it. So yes, there's a season and there's a time when we have to basically just know how to persist. But then there's also a season and a time when we recognize that we actually have to let go. We actually have to get a wee bit more recovery. And what happens, and this is what I absolutely love, is when people say to me, like, I don't have time for recovery, or I feel like I don't have time, my invitation is to look at the type of self-care that you're doing. Because when you find something that works, it's really easy to make time for it because it's so reinforcing. It is so rewarding. So again, if your self-care is like, trying to knock out a gnarly workout where you're sweating and you're in pain and you can't even put your hair in a ponytail the next day, like, yeah, it's going to be harder to stay consistent because that's actually probably doing more harm than good. But when you find self-care that actually is doing its job, it's actually a lot easier to follow through.
And it's like the consistency of it too is and again, it's just like full circle moment, like going back and just saying to yourself, like, okay, I didn't get to that this week. And that self-compassion, instead of beating ourselves like up about that, is so, I think that's a really big shift in how we talk to ourselves too, right? Like,
Yeah.
that, going back to that, it's really, it feels like all of your work is very interconnected.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I can share with you too, like, we come from this from a really good place. It's not that we've been doing it wrong or we are broken. Many of us grow up in households where we've learned that practice. So for example, like when I was little, like, Robyne, you can go play with your friends, which is something that's reinforcing. It's pleasant. It gives me, it's awesome when you're a kid to play with your friends once you get your homework done, right? You can, watch TV, which again, when you're little and you're trying to get to that one program at 7 o'clock. And I tried to explain that to my teenagers because they grew up with on-demand programming. I'm like, no, you would have to be home at 7 o'clock and you can
Not the
just watch.
time to watch the
Exactly.
show. Yes.
Absolutely. And again, you can do that once you get, your homework done or your chores finished. So we've grown up with this bartered system where once we get our work done, then we're allowed to take care of ourselves. So as a mother, I can guarantee you your work will never be done. So we feel guilty because we're breaking this rule that we have to get our work done before we take care of ourselves. But the unlearning that I see makes the biggest difference for women is recognizing that recovery is part of high performance. And no Olympian I've ever worked with has ever said to me, Robyne, I feel bad when I have to taper, or I feel bad if I'm going for a massage or I'm doing ice work, none of them do, because they understand it's injury prevention. It's part of how they stay great. It's how they maintain excellence. And I think as mothers, especially, we want to bring those practices as normal activities that we do every single day. It's not just something that we do when we get all our other work done.
Yeah, I think it's like this, oh, I feel like I have so many people and things to take care of that I don't deserve it, or I, like you said, don't have the time for it. And I think these are just excuses that we have for ourselves because we care so deeply about the people around us. We care so deeply about our work. And
Yeah.
I struggle with this a lot. The recovery piece is really hard for me. I think there's something that's like very my work kind of pulls me in to the point where I feel that sense of, oh, I'm letting someone down if I'm doing that recovery piece, but yet I know logically how important it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I think also it gets wrapped in, again, talking about interconnectedness with our identity, right? We see ourselves as high performers. We see ourselves as people who can juggle not just, plates, we're juggling platters at this point, right? Like we like to juggle all of the things. And for some of us, it's wildly reinforcing. We love the adrenaline rush. We love being we joke in my family that I'm the oracle, right? I'm the all knowing source of everybody's schedule, calendar, information,
Yep.
everything. And like, I like being in that place of control and I like that place of knowing. And there's nothing wrong with that. But then you want to start to think creatively about what are some other ways that you can buy back some of your time and your energy, because some of the things that you're doing, probably somebody else could do. And again, in different ways, in different systems. So you can continue to be your high performing self, but you just make sure that you get some recovery built into it as well.
Totally. Um, what is something, just to wrap up here, that
Sure.
we can share with all of your amazing research and your incredible work? What is something we can leave these incredible mothers at all different stages of their journey, whether they're new moms or have teenagers or older children or grandchildren, whatever they have? Maybe they're starting a new business, or they're, changing paths or changing careers or thinking about it. What can we leave them with in terms of your work with resilience and stress? And I do love how you have kept coming back to this positive aspect of it, and it's not all bad. So, what can we leave them with in that regard?
Okay, so I am a huge advocate that the little things aren't that little after all. The little things, if we can do the little things right, the other pieces are going to fall into place. And I'll give you an example. One of the practices that I've done with my children since they were babies, and this was inspired by a poem I heard by Toni Morrison so many years ago. And the practice that I do when I reconnect with my loved ones. Okay, so if I'm picking them up from camp, if I'm picking them up from school, whenever I was working and then now I'm back with my people, all you have to do, Dani, is have your face light up. Just be so excited to see the people who matter most. All of your energy. And again, I appreciate you're tired, you're overwhelmed, you're under a lot of stress. There's so many moving parts, especially as entrepreneurs with all these different people coming at you. But just make sure your reunions are just a moment where they feel it and they see it, right? Just be really present for connection. And I'll share with you just briefly. So my oldest, he's working as a camp counselor this summer, and it's kind of a cool full circle because he's actually a sports counselor at the camp that he and his siblings went to when they were babies. So like
Oh,
it was
cool.
a big deal. And he was in in with the little. So these are like junior, senior kindergarten. So these kids are like 3 and 4. And he said to me one day, he came home and he goes, Mom, I got to tell you, he said, you know how you do that thing where like your face lights up when you see us? And I was like, yeah, because we've talked about it before. He goes, I did that with each one of those little campers. And he said, it was wild how every single morning they were carrying these big backpacks, these tiny little bodies. And as soon as we made eye contact, and his camp name is Swish, and they would be like, Swish, and they would run up to him and he would high five them. And he said, I was so excited to see every one of my camp little kids. And he's like, Mom, he's like, I didn't realize just how powerful it is to be seen And at the end of the day, with all of the busyness, with all of the noise and all the distractions, just do the reunions right. And I think a lot of the other things fall into place.
What a beautiful place to just like close our conversation. And it's such a nice reminder that we can have those little moments of connection. They can, and they mean just as much to us as it does to them. Like it's
Yes.
just such a beautiful point of connection. And for anyone, like littles, nieces, nephews, like
Yeah.
all of the people around us. Wow, it's such a I was like crying thinking about like
Oh,
your son doing that to all these little campers. And I'm about to send my daughter to camp for the first time and I'm like a little bit nervous about it. And just
yeah.
knowing that there's like other like young people and teenagers out there doing that kind of stuff and being like so thoughtful with these kids
Yes.
makes me feel so much more excited to send her. So
Oh,
I'm
I
really
love
happy
that.
to share that. Thank you.
I'll pass on to her. And again, just really briefly, it's
Should.
funny. My kids always joke with their friends that their mom, Robin, that I'm like the golden retriever of mothers. That I just get so excited wherever I see them. I just get so excited. And again, even with all the busyness of navigating careers, navigating difficult seasons, like again, that's something I've been able to know with confidence I got right with my kids, and it matters. The little things aren't that little after all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Robin. This was such a beautiful conversation, and I hope I know everyone who is listening is going to be thinking about you for the next at least week, if not longer, because that was so powerful. And thank you so much for sharing and being here today and joining the podcast and speaking to all of us moms. We really needed that. So thank you for sharing everything so much.
Oh, thank you, Dani. Keep doing the good work.
Love today's episode? Hit subscribe and share it with a friend who'll love it too. For more jam-packed episodes and to connect with me, head to danikagan.com. And hey, the best way to support the show? Leave a 5-star review for me so we can help more people like you raise it up.